All right, welcome everybody to tonight's event, the nuts and bolts of credentialing with Angie Holleran. I'm going to introduce Angie a little bit more in a moment. A lot of you already know who she is, and as we've already heard, are here to see her tonight. I just want to say welcome, as most of you, or I shouldn't say most of you, as some of you know, I'm Kirk Fox, the co-director of programming for Toronto ICF. And as always, excited to bring an event to all of our membership this evening. As some of you heard a few moments ago, we have record registration tonight. So clearly credentialing is on the top of people's minds. So Angie, no pressure, as you said. I will do a land acknowledgement in just a moment. Actually, no, I'm going to do that now, and then I'm going to make an announcement. So if we can just pause for one moment while we do our land acknowledgement for this evening. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their culture. From coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Please join me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge the effect of residential schools and colonialism on Indigenous families and communities, and to consider how we are and can each in our own way try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Thank you. Before I turn it over to Angie, I do have one little announcement, is we are bringing a special event to our membership this month that will be advertised shortly, but it just happened, so I thought I'd hot off the press, let all of you know. As many of you may know, we're part of the Northeast region of chapters, and occasionally we get invited to join other chapters at their events. So the Connecticut chapter has invited all chapters to join them for an event coming up on February 24th called the Ethics in Coaching with the Coactive Training Institute. Sounds like a really great session. So we will be inviting our members to register for that one as well. So stay tuned, more information coming to you shortly. So I'm telling you before we even have it out on the press. So February 24th. Now, the difference is it's a morning meeting and we always do ours in the evening. So for those early risers, it's 8 a.m. So if you can make it, great. Look for that one coming out shortly. All right, Angie Holleran, my colleague who I think, Angie, I've known you for a very long time. I remember you helping me with my credentialing when I first started, I think, that long ago. I didn't look it up, but I seem to remember. For those of you that don't know Angie, let me just tell you a little bit about this amazing person. Angie is the Regional Development Manager for the Professional Coaches family. She joined ICF in September 2010, where she was a member of the credentialing team as a credentialing coordinator. She has extensive experience with the credentialing process, including renewals and PCC markers. She rose within the department to be the first ever assessor manager. In April 2021, Angie became the Regional Development Manager and supports the Northeast and Southeast regions of North America. Angie, welcome. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. It is so good to be here. I'm excited to be able to share some of my knowledge and history with all of you around ICF and the credentialing process. So the reason and my sole purpose of doing these presentations is to try and help ease any of those anxieties that any of you have around the credentialing process. So what I'm going to do is I have a fairly brief PowerPoint. I will be going through that rather quickly, but please don't feel like you need to write anything down. I will provide this PowerPoint to Kirk, and he can provide that to you later. So that'll just allow you to just absorb it all. But make sure that you keep note of those questions, because that's the funnest part of these sessions, is just to really get down and dirty with those questions that you have and help ease those anxieties. Let's see. All right. See if it's going to let me see that. Okay, here we go. So first of all, currently there are over 49,000 credentialed coaches that hold one of the three ICF credentials, the ACC, PCC, or MCC. They're gaining expertise and professional fulfillment, and the ICF credentials are the mark of coaching excellence. Pay close attention in the next week or so. There will be a special announcement from Credentials. Carrie Abner will be sending that out, and we're super excited about it. Today, we're going to be going over the credential application requirements, the performance evaluation criteria, and the new ICF credentialing exam. Here are the requirements for all credential levels. For coach-specific training, the ACC requires 60 hours, the PCC 125 hours, and the MCC is 200 hours. These hours can come from ICF accredited or non-ICF accredited programs. For experience hours, the ACC requires a minimum of 100 hours, of which at least 75 are paid. For the PCC, it requires at least 500 hours, of which 450 are paid. And for the MCC is 2,500 hours, of which 2,250 must be paid. Each applicant is required to have at least 10 hours of mentor coaching that is completed over a minimum of 3 months. And for any application requiring a performance assessment, the ACC requires 1 session to be submitted, and the PCC and MCC require 2 sessions to be submitted. The sessions that I'm referring are recordings of client sessions with a written transcript. And finally, all applicants must complete the ICF credentialing exam. At the ACC level, there are 3 available application paths. The path taken is dependent on the type of education program that you used and are applying for that credential. If you're using a level 1 or an accredited coach training program, what we call the ACTP, they have built into their programs the education hours, the mentor hours, and the recorded observed coaching call evaluation to the ACC level or above. The applicant just needs to submit the application with their education program certificate of completion and the coaching experience hours and take the exam. For those that fully complete and graduate from an ACTP or level 1, the ACC level 1, level 2 application path should be used. I know that sounds really worded. So when you go onto the website and are ready to apply, you'll click apply now. It will take you through a very brief survey and it will point you in the correct direction. So don't worry too much about which path it's supposed to be. It will get you there. For the PCC, there are also 3 application paths for the PCC level. So we have, if you're applying with the ACTP, which is transitioned to the level 2 accreditation type in 2022. And this also has built into their program the training hours, the mentor coaching, and the recorded observed coaching call evaluation to the PCC level. The applicant just needs to submit the application with their certificate of completion and the coaching experience hours and take the exam. For those that are using a level 1 or accredited coach-specific training hours, and that's what we call the ACSTH, or a portion of an ACTP, those programs provided coach education. The other aspects, the mentor coaching and the recorded coaching call, need to be verified separately and must be included within your application. Now, I'm not going to say that all ACSTH paths do not include mentor coaching. Many do. So please check with your program to make sure that you're not getting double mentor coaching that you may not need to go forward with that. Now, if you use any non-ICF approved training or any CCEs within the education types, in order to meet the education hours required, then those non-ICF accredited programs will need to be submitted with robust documentation to ensure that they meet ICF standards. The other requirements, such as the mentor coaching and the recorded coaching call, those will need to be verified separately and must be included within your application. Along with their education program certificate and coach experience hours, this would go through the portfolio path. At the MCC level, we have two application paths. They haven't released just yet the MCC level 3 path, but it will be introduced soon. So for really everyone for the MCC, it's going to be the portfolio path until that level 3 is introduced and people have had a chance to take a level 3 program. But for the MCC, it needs 200 hours of coach-specific training. You'll need the 2,500 hours of experience, and you'll complete that through an attestation. You'll need 2 performance evaluations submitted with that. These need to be anywhere from 20 to 60 minutes in length. Now, here is a list of all of the different application path types and the costs involved. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we are going to provide these slides for you, and you can see them there. For education requirements, just one second here. For the ACTP, it's 125 hours or longer. This includes mentor coaching and the performance assessments. And then with the ACTP, it is going away. So it's being retired and it'll be a new level type. So it'll be a level 2 in 2023. Then we have ACSTH hours. These hours in the past have always been 30 hours or longer. And it as well is being retired to be a level 1. Then we have CCEs, which are continued coach education. Those are really intended for people that have their credential and are needing them for renewals. But please keep in mind that if you do have CCEs and would like to use them towards an initial application, you are welcome to do so. Then we have non-approved training. If you're wanting to use anything that is non-approved, you're welcome to do so, but please know that you will need to fill out a form and make sure that it is filled in with robust documentation, because the education team will review that to make sure that it's eligible. For the client coaching experience, you may count any coaching that you have done at the start of your coach training. ICF defines the start of coach-specific training as any ACTP or ACSCH program with at least 30 hours, or any CCE program with at least 30 hours. Now, of that 30 hours, if you're using CCEs, at least 24 of them must be core competencies. As soon as you begin coaching, you should begin logging client coaching hours. A simple spreadsheet is effective. However, if anyone would like one, as members of ICF Global, you do have access to a member toolkit that has a template that you're welcome to use. There are 4 types of clients may be included in your coaching log. You have individual, you have group or team, internal coaching, and this is where your job responsibilities include coaching, and then third-party coaching, and this is when you're contracted by a company to offer coaching. In keeping with the ICF Code of Ethics, you must obtain consent from each client to list his or her information on a client coaching log. The consent should be documented in compliance with all relevant laws. For example, the European GDPR. Individuals who do not consent to have their names listed must be left off of the log, except in internal or third-party coaching arrangements with organizations that have a confidentiality policy. Now, with me saying all of that, rest assured you will never at any time be requested or submit your coaching log to ICF. This is for your confidentiality as well as your clients. If something were to happen that you were on the slim chance that you were audited, ICF will provide you with a link and a brief statement that you can provide to those individuals, and they can submit it. It's just a simple jot form, and it still does not ask for their contact information, even in that survey. So just to give you a little bit of rest assured on that, we will never ask for it. Mentor coaching. So the definition of mentor coaching for ICF credentialing is that it focuses on the development of coaching skills, mainly in the context of initial development. This is helping the client to develop core competency skills. You will need 10 hours of mentor coaching done over a minimum of 3 months. Of the 10 hours, 3 must be one-on-one with the mentor, and the remaining 7 can be in one-on-one or within a group setting. For the mentor coaching you may work with any current ICF credential holder with a credential at or above the level to which you're applying. However, please note that ACC credentialed coaches must renew their credential at least once before they're eligible to be a mentor coach. In your application, you'll enter in your mentor's name, their email address, the date of the first session, the date of the last session, and how many hours met, and if they were in a group setting. For additional information and resources on mentor coaching, along with a link, Find a Mentor Coach, can be found on the mentor coaching page, which may be accessed through the ACC, PCC, or MCC information pages. For the performance evaluation, applicants will submit a recording or recordings of a client coaching session that is between 20 and 60 minutes in length. The session must be with a regular client of yours. Along with the recording, a written transcript of the audio file must be submitted. The transcript must be in the language in which the session is spoken, and if the session is in a language that is not in the current list, ICF available languages for assessment, then an English transcript of the session must also be included. Additional information on this can be found within the minimum skills requirements and a comparison chart by level, and this can be found on the performance evaluation page. Those also can be reached through those ACC, PCC, and MCC links. The ICF credentialing exam. Did everybody's tummy just kind of flutter a little bit? So for the exam, it's an online exam. This is separate and different from the previous CKA. So you have the coach knowledge assessment, which has been retired. And now we have the ICF credentialing exam. The new credentialing exam is made up of 81 scenario-based questions. It's going to ask you what's the best response and what's the worst response. This exam is done through a proctored environment. You have the opportunity that you can either go to a facility. They have over 6,500 locations. Or you can do this from your home office or an office that you feel comfortable and secure in, that you know that people are not going to walk in on you. And the reason I say this is because if you don't do this in one of the local locations, they want to see around your desk, around the area. They want to make sure there's nothing that could be recording anything. You cannot wear a smartwatch. You are not allowed to have a phone in the room with you. If someone were to walk in while you're taking the test, it will end the test. So these are things that you really want to think about before you schedule the session to take it. If you go into one of the locations, they will have you lock up your phone, your smartwatches, anything like that will have to be put away. Now, the great thing about They have heard everyone's cries. They have spoke with the testing facilities. And now, as of February 1st, midway through, halfway through the 3 hours, you will get a 5-minute break. So I hope this brings a little bit of, phew, it did to me, because I'll be taking it before the end of the year. I'm super excited. All right, and our last slide, credential renewal. Your credentials are valid for 3 years. For example, if you were to receive your credential today, then your expiration date would be February 28th of 26. So in order to renew all 3 levels, it requires 40 hours of CCEs. Of those 40 hours, at least 24 must be in core competency. Within those 24, 3 must be in ethics. There's a lot of ethics items provided within your local chapters. And there's also a free 3-hour ethics course that you can find on our website. So make sure and utilize those. It's great information. And you're not limited to just 3. Do them both. And then also for the ACCs, 10 hours must be in mentor coaching. And that also counts towards that 24-hour of core competency. So really, if you break those down and you say, oh gosh, I've got to have 24 hours in core competency. If you're an ACC, you're going to get the 10 from mentor coaching and the 3 from ethics. That's going to leave your 11 hours. Well, at any level, even including ACC, you can provide or receive up to 10 hours of supervision, and that also counts towards those core competency hours. Then please, please, please get with Kirk. Look at all of the offerings that the chapter has. There are lots and lots of core competency hours through your local chapters, through the learning management system, which you are given access to as being an ICF Global member. There's just so many opportunities there. And then with the remaining 16 hours of those 40, they can be in either core competency or resource development. You can get those resource development hours by listening to archived sessions, CCE sessions. You can get them from reading books on coaching. You can get them on taking a class on business. So it really is, if as long as it's other skills and tools, business development, personal development, you can count them towards those 16 hours. Now, with that said, my favorite part, Q&A.
So Angie, I've noted some in the chat, and maybe what we can do is ask everybody at this point to maybe click the raise hand, and then that way we'll just get you to unmute and ask your question of Angie. But if you don't mind, I'll maybe start with a few that were in the chat. And I'm just scrolling up. Mo was wondering if you could elaborate on the non-credential credit.
Is it the non-approved training? Is that the question?
It says, can you please elaborate on non-credential credit? Mo, do you want to unmute and maybe elaborate on your question?
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, that's the unapproved training from other resources.
Okay. Sure. So you are welcome to use non-approved training towards a credential. All that you're going to need to do is when you are filling in the application, there's going to be a nice little link within the application, and it's going to allow you to go through and supply pieces of that training for them to see that it is in line with the ICF core competencies. It will ask you to supply student materials, robust documentation. Now, if for some reason, when the education team is reviewing that information, if they feel that they need a little bit more, they'll reach out to you and ask for it. So don't feel like they're going to either give it or not. They may just need a little bit more information, but just make sure that you provide enough to show that it is in line with those core competencies.
Does that answer?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mo. Teresa had asked where to find mentor coaches, and Teresa, I don't know if you noticed, but Deborah, a little further down in the chat, put the link there. You got it? Awesome. Good. The third question that I noticed was, hold on, from Veronica. Do we need to move sequentially from the ACC to the PCC, or can we go directly to PCC if you have the requisite items in place?
That is a wonderful question. If you have all of the requirements to go straight for PCC, by all means, you can go straight for that PCC. However, if you decide to go from PCC to MCC, you must have that PCC first. So you can't go straight to MCC like you have been in the past. You do have to have that PCC before you can apply for the MCC.
Okay, and I think this might be the last question before we're going to go to some of the hands. So Jill, I think you're going to be up in a moment. Phelan, if I'm saying that correctly, what would happen if a child, for example, was to walk into the exam? Would that also stop it?
I'm afraid to say yes or no on that. All I've heard is that if anyone came in, that it would end the exam. I would really probably just try to be in, if you're doing it from a home office, scheduling at a time that no one else is going to be there.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to try to go back and forth between the hands and a few more questions in the chat, just to be fair. So please, if I miss you by any chance, please just jump in. So Jill, over to you.
Hi. So for MCC, it asks for 2,500 hours, and that's 2,500 cumulative, not like from PCC to MCC, you need 2,500 more. Is that correct?
You're correct in that it's a cumulative. So
okay,
each credential level is treated independent. So it's based off of what you have in total. So
okay.
for example, if
so
you get
I don't
the
need
ACC,
2,500 more if I'm
exactly.
A PCC. Okay, perfect.
Correct.
And then my other question was, oh, sorry, can I have two?
Of course.
So if you took the exam for the PCC, when you're going for your MCC, do you have to take the exam again?
When you got the PCC, if you took the CKA, when you go to apply for the MCC, you will need to take the new credentialing exam.
Okay, thank you. And sorry about the dog.
It's okay.
Thanks, Jill. Andrea.
Hey there. Hey, Angie. Thank you so much for doing this
Hi.
and demystifying some of these queries. I have two quick questions too. I apologize, but you mentioned, and if I'm mistaken, please correct me, that CCEs can actually be carried forward if they're earned prior to credentialing. That was new to me. That's true?
No. Okay. So if you're using CCEs towards an initial application, they can be used no matter when they were done. If you're referring to a credential renewal, all of those have to have had occurred after you either received, were awarded the credential, or if you've renewed it since the renewal, the last renewal. They would all have to be new.
Thank you. So the initial part, very important. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
And also, and my second quick question, please, is if during a 3-year period, if you are applying for a new credential, then is that upon awarding of the new credential, is it valid for the balance of that whatever 3-year period you were in, or does it reset the 3-year period?
It resets it. So if you were to get your ACC today and say in July, you go ahead and apply for the PCC, then it starts new for the PCC.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you for doing this again.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Andrea. Great questions, everybody. Okay, I'm going to go to a couple in the chat now. Kelly, so CCEs are measured in hours. So 40 CCEs is 40 hours of training. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And Teresa, I see you're up next, but shall I read your question in the chat, or is that what your hand is up for?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jump right in. Love to hear from you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Angie. So my questions are, and I apologize if these are repeats because I jumped in a bit late, but So I do group coaching plus private. So is it the combination of those hours that goes towards the full 500 if I am to apply for my PCC?
It is. You just, when you're measuring your group hours, you just want to make sure that you're only counting the amount of time that you coach. So if you're group coaching 10 individuals for 1 hour, it would be 1 hour of coaching for you. But yes, all of those can count towards those 500 hours.
Okay, great. Thank you. And for programs that we do or education that we take that is CCE related,
Mhm.
Does it have to be the mentoring component? Like there's some programs that have things like, I don't know, like they have 4 hours built in, but it's not called mentoring. It's like integration, if you will. That's not considered mentoring as it stands by ICF mentoring, correct?
If you're being mentored, see, there's a fine line there. So if you're looking at CCEs and the majority of that program, which we do have, is mentoring, you can use them either or. You just can't use them as both. So if you needed the mentoring hours, it'd probably be better for you to use them as mentoring hours rather than CCEs.
Okay, so you choose what you want to use it for.
Right, you just can't double dip into the same program. But if a program that you've taken does offer and provide those mentor coach hours, and you need mentor coaching, you can use that. You'll just need to make sure that those CCE hours are not included in your education requirement piece.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Teresa. So I'm going to go back to the chat. And for those of you, if you're not checking out the chat, you may want to, because a lot of people are adding great tips and suggestions as well that are worth reading. Brenda, I'm going to go to your question. Do you have to take the exam if you're renewing your ACC?
That is a really, really great question. The credentialing exam is no part in any way of the renewal. So feel free in renewing those credentials and not having to take the credentialing exam.
So can I just say, you just made me really happy because I was freaking out when I thought about the exam. I was
Yay!
like, wow, totally appreciate that.
Why do exams stress us out so much, right? It goes back
Because
to
you don't want to
childhood, maybe.
fail. Do you want to fail? No.
The thing for me is that I don't want to let anyone down. And I feel like if I were to not be successful, that it's saying that I messed up somewhere. But not everybody's great at tests. The good thing is if you're in that boat like I am and you're not great at tests, if something were to happen, keep your chin up. You can retake it. There is a small fee of $105 US to retake the credentialing exam, but it is an option. So it's not of, oh gosh, I've done all this, I failed, now I'm nothing. Jump back in there. Do it. Keep your chin up. It'll be okay.
Thanks, Angie. Chris, let's go to you. Please unmute and go ahead.
Thank you so much, Kirk. Hi, Angie. It's very nice to meet you. I want to acknowledge that I think my question has been answered through the more recent discussions, but admittedly, I have generalized anxiety and have to be 250% sure. So thank you for indulging me for I think I know the answer. But I wanted to revisit your kind share about applying or using CCEs for an initial application. So bear with me. So here's what I'm going through. So I'm looking to go straight for PCC this year, and I have 90 coach training hours or coach specific education hours or coach training hours. So I believe CCEs you said are measured now in hours. So I just need 35 CCEs that I can apply through the portfolio path to round out the 125. Is that a fair understanding?
That's correct. You just want to make sure that when you're using CCEs towards an initial application, that you're still sticking with that 80-20 rule. So any class that you took that's ACTP or ACSCH, and please know, those hours do not expire. They are yours. They're your learning. We will forever accept them. But when you're using CCEs, you just need to make sure that you're sticking with that 80-20 rule. So for 125 hours, you have to have at least 100 core competency hours. Now, like I said, the ACTP and ACSTH hours are automatically all going to be counted as core competency. So if you need a few additional above that, you just want to make sure that you have at least 100 hours are core competency.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, Angie, Nerman is asking, do you know why the ACTHS is retiring?
Because people got tired of alphabet soup. So we switched it to level 1, level 2, so that there was just a more clear understanding. It was probably one of our biggest things for people to grasp a hold of, and I think it took me several years to get. The ACTP is an all-inclusive. It's like going to a resort, and everything's included. You get your mentor coaching, your education, the performance evaluation assessments, all of that is included. But an ACTP is made up of ACSTH hours and those other pieces. So we look at ACSTH as being a la carte. Like when I go to the Mexican restaurant and I don't want all that other stuff, I just want that one thing. So, but that's the main reason, is it was just really hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. It did not translate very well. So we've went to level 1, level 2.
And Nerman, I see you're right there with another question,
Yeah,
or maybe elaborate,
because
please jump in.
yeah, I'm sorry, I have my daughter on the background with her TV. So I'm now curious about these levels. Like I read that on the ICF as well. I just became a member and it's still new to me. So what do these levels refer? Like what do they measure? The level 1, level 2.
The level 1 and level 2, in order for a program to receive that, they have to have a minimum number of hours, and they have to have certain benchmarks that they have to meet in order to be considered that. So what they're doing is they're going through excessive training and things of that nature. They've got people on staff that have taken training to be assessors in order to assess for their program. And then that's going to allow people to apply and have a much smoother process than they have in the past, with having to wait for assessments to be completed and a lot of additional people having to review it and complete those types of assessments. But it just kind of brings it all in. And I know that we've got a couple of people on the call here that have really been involved in
So now
creating
what
a
I'm
lot of
curious
that.
about, sorry. So what I'm curious about, like, let's say I only did this ACTHS, whatever that is, and it doesn't really matter for me, but like what I'm curious to know is, what is level 1 and level 2? Like, let's say I'm a level 1 or a level 2. Do I still get an ACC or a PCC? What does it matter? Like, what's the importance of these levels?
It's really similar to the same as what the ACTP and ACSTH were. They're just translated to level 1, level 2 to make it easier for people to know which route that they need to go. One is equivalent to the ACTP, where it's all inclusive and it has at least 125 hours that gets you to that PCC level. And the other one is, it requires 60 hours. As the ACSTH before only required to be 30 hours, it now requires to be 60. But it also has that mentor coaching piece. So it's really getting more. And then the programs, if they want the same program to have different levels of approval, they submit those differently.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Brenda, I'll go to you and then I'll go back to the chat. Brenda, over to you.
So my question is 2 parts. You indicated that if you took courses, like if you went to college and took some other courses, you mentioned some business courses. How does that work? Like I did the diversity inclusion in the workplace program. Can I use some of those hours towards my certification? And then
you could use them towards a renewal.
Yeah, I'm renewing. Yeah,
yeah, you can use them towards the 16 resource development hours. Absolutely.
Okay. I can use the whole 16?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then my next part is, what about books? I understand that if you read books, you can get some credit. How do I do that?
You just fill in the title of the book that you read and you tell them how long it took you, and they count it off of the resource development 16 hours that you're. Nope.
Is there a limit?
No, you only need 16. As
Oh.
long as you have that 24 hours of core competency, the 16, you could read all 16 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Wow, I did not know that. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go back to the chat. Lucy, I think your question was answered earlier that you don't need to take the exam when you're renewing a credential.
That's right.
Okay, David is asking, please clarify what must be included in the application for PCC submission if a candidate attended an approved program that included the hours of training, the coaching sessions, performance assessment, and the mentoring.
So when you apply for the PCC and you've completed a full ACTP, then you're going to supply your certificate of completion from the program. You're going to attest that you have the 500 hours of coaching experience. You submit it, and then you'll take the credentialing exam. And that's it. It should take 2 to 3 weeks to hear that you're ready for the exam. And then depending on when you sign up to take the exam, once you take that and pass the exam, then you're credentialed really within about 48 hours.
All right, Jessica, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much. I admittedly have been late to this meeting, so my apologies if this question has been already asked, but I have 2 questions if I may.
Sure.
My first is, I'm a little baby coach. I'm going for my ACC right now, and I'm tracking my hours, and I remember doing one of these sessions before, and someone said that group work, like I host workshops regularly outside of my one-on-one coaching, and I was told that there's a way to count, speaking engagements and workshops hours towards the coaching hours, like those 100 hours. And you're thinking right now, so now I'm thinking that I'm wrong here. But I was wondering how that would count, because I did one, they were like, oh yeah, if you do a workshop for like an hour, you can count that towards your coaching hours, which go towards your ACC. But I guess I'm wrong.
Well, we're looking at, there's fine lines when you say that you have a workshop. So generally, when I think of a workshop, I'm thinking like a designed program with agendas and things like that.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a workshop where you're doing some peer-to-peer coaching.
Yeah.
So anytime that you're spent engaged in coaching, you can count it as long as it's not a part of a designed program. So if you are in class and you all are doing some coaching sessions, but they're practice within, they're still coaching sessions, but those would not be countable because they're built into that program.
Okay. What about elaborate, what about I do some speaking, like where I teach on stress management, and I'll talk to like 100 people on it. That's not coaching. I know it's not coaching, but like that doesn't count. Okay.
Right, that does not count. It is just time that you've counted. Now, if you are group coaching, make sure that you have no more than 15 individuals. In order for it to be group, it must be 15 or fewer clients.
Okay, and then if I were to count those hours, would it count as 15 hours because there's 15 people, or 1 hour because it's okay?
It's just the amount of time that you spend. Now, what you can do is put the name of one person within that group into your log.
Okay.
Mark it as group, because if on the slim chance that you were audited, then you would provide the link to that one person. You don't have to send it to everyone.
Okay. And I just wanted to, if I may, I see there's only one hand up, so I'm hoping I can do this. But I've been doing extra learning through the Embody Lab, trying to incorporate some somatics. And I'm hearing all this talk about CCEs and continued education and stuff. Why do I need CCEs? Like as I'm going for my ACC, can you remind me, like, how do I track like extended learning, and why are they important for me? Like I understand, like obviously I understand why I need to continue learning, but why do I need to track it or submit it? Or I'm just a bit confused about the continued stuff.
So for CCEs, a continued education, you can, I'm one of those people that even if I do a LinkedIn Learning, I've got a certificate printed off for it.
Yeah. Same.
So, those aren't things that I'm really going to use for anything other than, hey, I did that.
Okay.
Now, before you receive a credential, That's kind of how you're looking at it. You can hold on to it because if you decide much later on to apply for the MCC, you can use those.
So I need them for the MCC and PCC, but not yet for ACC.
Right. Now, when you receive the credential, that's when you want to start adding them up for the renewal. But the good thing is we spent several years really working hard on designing and developing our current credential platform. It was a lot of hard work, but it has been so worth it that you don't have to hold on to all of those certificates and up until right when it's time to renew. You can upload those as you go into the renewal application that will appear as soon as you are awarded the credential.
Okay. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for letting me blab for a little bit. Thanks.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Jessica. All right, I'm going to pop back to the chat for a bit. Lisa is asking, for ACC renewal, what defines the resource development hours? And I know you've elaborated a little bit on that, but maybe I'll let you just elaborate again.
Sure. Resource development is really anything that is considered personal development, business development, other skills and tools. This could come from reading books. It can come from listening to archived learning on ICF's learning management system. You can do it through that way. You can view self-help videos if that's what's helping you. If you take a class on yoga, if you're reading books on coaching, if you're reading books on how to better your business, all of these things can count. Research. If you're writing a book, your research. Now, if you've written a book and it's on coaching, you can submit that towards the core competencies, and all they're going to need to look at is the date that your book was published. So if your book was published during that time, you can count those hours, and they count towards core competency as long as the book is reflective of those core competencies.
Okay. I'm having trouble seeing your name correctly, but is it Ilya? Am I close? Over to you. Please jump in.
I was just going to build on the group coaching a bit. I do workshops too. It's a group coaching, and I walk with people in the woods. It's called a slow down, catch your breath walk. And I was just wondering if it's in a small group, and I do a lot of talking and coaching whilst we're walking, and looking at how are you going to incorporate what you're learning here in the world. So could I count that as coaching hours?
If you're coaching within the session and that's the agreement that you and the clients have within that group, if you're walking while you're giving that session, that may be a tool that works great for you and your client. So if you're coaching, you can absolutely count those hours. Okay. Now, if it is, if they've signed up to do a workshop that's not labeled with the agenda of coaching, you want to really look at how those are presented. So just make sure that there's a clear line there on what people, that they know that they're signing up for a coaching session versus something different.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the chat, and apologies again if I get your name wrong. Please correct me. Is it Kibi or Kebi? Is asking, I've done 60 hours of continuing coach education 2 or 3 years ago, have all the required paid hours and mentor hours. Can I still apply for the ACC now since the training is a long time ago? For the recording, can I still use a recording that has been recorded 2 or 3 years ago?
Okay. So this is a phenomenal question. Your training, your education does not expire. So it will be valued at whatever it was approved for at the time that you took it. If you took an ACTP 25 years ago and it's no longer even in business, you can still count that. Now, when you're looking at your recording, and I think there's several mentor coaches in this call. especially someone like me that I've recently went through coach specific training and I've learned so much. I can't imagine turning in a session that I've recorded today as opposed to a session that I've done 6 months down the road, because I hope, and I would really, really hope that my coaching has improved in that time. So my advice is that there is no deadline on when the recording had to have taken place, but just be aware of how much you've improved and make sure and let those mentor coaches complete an assessment on those before you submit them. Because if something were to happen that it did not pass through the application process, doesn't necessarily mean that you're not coaching at the level that you need to. It may just be that it was not the best recording to choose. So there is a retake process, just to eliminate a little bit of stressor there. But I advise to always allow your mentor coaches, coach or coaches, to review that.
Okay. Jill, I've just come to your question. Would you like to unmute and jump right in?
Sure, but sorry, I don't remember what that question was because I thought of another one. Will you read it for me so I don't think
Absolutely. You were just, I think, confirming that the exam is only as you go up from one level to another, and then you asked, are they refining the new exam as they begin to use it?
Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like, are they giving it and then going, oh, this question didn't work, so we're going to take that out? Or is this the exam and they're not using that process?
There is a continual process of observing the responses. And if we see that a certain percentage of the exam takers are missing specific scenarios, they're going to look at that and reevaluate.
Okay, because is this the first year?
This is the first year. Just the credentialing exam itself was released August 1st of 22.
Okay, thank you.
And then the CKA ran from April 1st, 2014 until that August 1st, 22.
Right. Kirk, feel free to say that's too off topic, but I wondered, like, what does it take to become a mentor, an ICF mentor coach?
Currently, all that it requires is that you hold a current PCC or MCC credential. If you have an ACC, you can be a mentor coach, but only after you have renewed the ACC at least once.
Yeah. And how do I put myself in there? Because when the link was in there and I put my own name in and I didn't come up. So do you have to actively go in and say, I'm a mentor coach?
If you would like to be on the mentor coach registry,
yes,
then you apply. There is a $50 fee for the entire year. But you know that if you ever go to that mentor coach registry and you're looking for a mentor coach, that you can know in your heart that in order for them to be there, they have to be an eligible mentor coach and have held a credential for at least 3 years. So they did not get one yesterday and are just now, oh, I'm a mentor coach.
Yeah.
So you know that when you choose them. Now, do they have to be in the mentor coach registry in order to be eligible to be a mentor coach? No. They just have to have that PCC or MCC. And our staff is working very hard on designing a mentor coach program.
Oh, nice.
That for people to take when they want to be a mentor coach, so that they're offering the best service for their client as possible.
Yeah, I would want that. Like, I'd like to be a mentor coach, but I would love some training so that I'm sure that I'm doing it the best I can.
Well, that's great, because they are working on that, and it should be really great once they're finished.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Okay, my goodness, there's a lot of questions in the chat. I'm going to go to a few of those now. Lori is saying, please confirm 10 hours of coach supervision can count as mentor coaching. Also, if I'm upgrading from ACC to PCC, do I need to take the exam?
Okay, so supervision, unfortunately, does not count towards mentor coaching. You do need 10 hours of mentor coaching. Now, you can count up to 10 hours of supervision that you have either provided or received towards a renewal, and it does count towards core competencies of a credential renewal application. What was the second part of that question, Kirk?
The second part was, if I'm upgrading from ACC to PCC, do I need to take the exam?
It depends on if you took the CKA before when you received the ACC, then yes, you would need to take the credentialing exam. If you've just recently been awarded the ACC and you took the credential exam, you would not need to take it again for the PCC, unless in the next few years they come up with some different type of test, just because you never know when updates and things are going to be made. The good thing is that anytime that they are making an alteration to requirements, they do generally give you at least 6 months of a grace period to make sure and get an application submitted so that you're not subject to those new requirements. That's the way that you'd like to do it.
Okay. One more from the chat, and I think you spoke to this one, but just to make sure, Karen is asking, when renewing my ACC, my organization supplied an external coach to mentor us one-on-one and group. To use these hours, the 10 hours, does the mentor coach need to be, and I think you meant ICF credentialed?
Yes, the mentor coach would have to be ICF credentialed at the PCC or MCC level, or if they've got their ACC, that they've renewed it at least once. Now, if you have a mentor coach that you really like, but you're wanting to make sure because maybe you haven't seen or they haven't mentioned that they're credentialed, there is a way to go onto the website and verify a coach, and it will show what credential level that they have.
Okay. One more from the chat, and then Rose, I'm coming back to you. Dawn is asking, this is a good one, if your company pays you to volunteer coach, do those hours count as paid coach, or are they volunteer?
If they pay you, then they're paid. And please keep in mind, I've had to get crafty on my paid hours because I'm working on that credential, because where I'm a staff member, I cannot charge for my coaching. So I'm getting lots of really cool coupons. But please always remember your value and what you're worth. But if you want to give back, that's a beautiful thing. I'm finding a lot of joy in it. So please, but if you receive anything of monetary value, it is paid. If you volunteer at a shelter and they provide you with refreshments while you're there, those are paid hours because you would have had to buy those refreshments otherwise.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks, Donna. Okay, Rose, over to you. Please unmute.
Oh, thank you. And I have a question. I got my ACC accreditation last July 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm ready to apply for PCC. My school provided us I have to read that, ACTP training.
Mm-hmm.
So all my schoolmates are ready for PCC accreditation at the same time. So at the time I have over 200 hours, but not quite at PCC level yet. I am anticipating getting the 500 hours this year. I have two questions. Since I have 3-year period for my renewal, what is the CCE requirement? Second, do I have to take the exam again?
So if you received your ACC in July, that means that you took the coach knowledge assessment.
Yes.
That was the 155 multiple choice questions.
Yes.
So when you go to apply for the PCC, you will need to take the new credentialing exam.
Lovely.
However, if you're planning to apply for that PCC, you really don't have to worry about those CCEs because you're not going to need to supply any to apply for the PCC. So when you apply for it, you're just going to resupply your certificate of completion from the ACTP, and you'll complete the attestation for your 500 hours, and then you'll take the credentialing exam. But you won't need to show any CCEs. That's only if you're going to renew.
Right. So all those exams, is it similar from our 150 questions before, or like, I know it's less, it's 130, something like that?
It's 81 scenario-based questions that are two-part questions. It's going to ask you what's the best answer and what's the worst answer. But
Okay.
there are a couple of sample scenarios that you can find on the website, and it shows how those responses look for you to choose what's the best and what's the worst.
Okay. Do they do bell curve, or it's a 85% passing mark? Is that?
There's not a curve, but they do have there's a rubric. They don't share it with anyone what the rubric is.
Do you know immediately when you get off, so you won't be
Yes,
hanging
it sends you
waiting and-
notification right away.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the chat for a moment. Nancy is asking, I recently submitted a renewal. I am assuming the CCEs I am earning now while waiting for approval can be used towards my next renewal.
There's a fine line there. It really depends on like when the application was submitted. So if you submitted the application, you would need to reach out to the credentialing team that handles renewals and see if they would allow that, because you had already submitted your application. Most of the time they will. But if you really kind of stagger them out across the 3 years and take advantage of all of the things that your local chapter is providing, because they are required to provide you at least 6 hours of continued education each year. And then they also partner with the Northeast region for even additional learnings. So you really should be able to get all of them fairly inexpensive through your local chapters and the things that ICF Global provides on the learning management system.
Okay, thank you. David, nice to see you. I thought I recognized your name. Please unmute and jump right in.
Hi, everybody. I want to ask a question about the worst options, which is a creative assessment design structure, which I haven't really seen before. So number one, I want to know whether you have precedent that establishes that as a meaningful assessment. Secondly, my training was all about what to do right, not to do wrong. And now you're saying, how wrong can you get it? Because, you got more than one that's going to probably be really bad. And now I got to judge what's worse. So it's a unusual design. Related to that, I know on the ICF websites, you've got videos of how to do things right on the competencies, on ethics, and I'm wondering if you're going to create videos on how to do it wrong, and so we can learn, because I don't really know what you're looking for and how bad it could be.
That is a really great question, and actually the first time that I've received it. So I am happy to take that back to the powers that be that have worked on getting this created. But the biggest reason that they went to this type of testing platform is because of all of the work that George Rogers has done in getting ICF and ISO certification. So a lot of it spans from that. But I would love to hear a response on that as well, David. So I will make sure and get your information. I do have your email address, and I will speak with them and see what we can learn and find out.
Wonderful, and if you could share it with all the others, and
Absolutely.
others probably would appreciate
that is
it
really a fantastic question. So thank you so much for bringing it up.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've answered this, but just to make sure, Lucy is asking if we use the hours of attendance to ICF courses that we attended in an ACTP recognized institution to fill the hours needed for renewal. Can we also use those same courses to apply to change level from ACC to PCC? And I think you did say it was cumulative.
It is cumulative, but if you complete, so a lot of people will be in an ACTP, and when they get that 60 hours, they go ahead and apply for the ACC so that they have a credential while they're working towards completing the ACTP and getting the 500 hours for the PCC level. So if that's how you do it, absolutely. So once you finish that ACTP and get that certification, then you would be able to apply for the PCC via the ACTP path.
Can I just ask a question around that? It's me
Sure.
that has the question. I wasn't talking about the coaching hours though. I was talking about the courses. So
Right. That's what I'm saying. So once you get that certification, if you receive the certification while you already had the ACC, then you would just use that certification to apply for the PCC, and you would apply via the ACTP path.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Adria, do you want to jump in?
Hi, Adria. Yes, I will.
Adria, sorry, Adria.
It's okay. Everybody gets it wrong. Hi, Angie.
Hi.
I just wanted to say, I thought you said to be on the mentor list, you don't need to, there are not any requirements, but Fran sent me a note from whoever is on the credentialing team saying anybody that wants to be on the mentoring list has to do the CKA exam.
Right. If you, the requirements are that you've held a credential for at least 3 years. If you have never taken the exam because maybe you've had an MCC for several years, you would need to take it, but it's included within that charge to get on the mentor coach registry. You would only need to do it the one time.
Yeah.
CKA, but yeah,
hasn't been around very long, so I will take it. I think the deadline for anybody else that's in that situation, February the 28th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adria.
Okay, Seema is asking to renew an ACC credential. Could you talk a bit more about the 10 hours of mentor coaching? I'm not clear how this works.
So when you're renewing your ACC, you need 10 new hours, and this has to have occurred after you were awarded the credential. It needs to occur over a span of at least 3 months. Now, the reason that they do this is that because they want you to build a relationship with your mentor coach or coaches. There is not a limit to the number of mentor coaches that you can have to apply for that, but just keep in mind that the more that you have, the least amount that you're going to be able to see the growth. So does that make sense? Does anybody have a question about that?
I actually, sorry, I just threw my video back on too, because that was me asking the question. So I've been on a screen all day, so that's why I was giving myself a mental break. I think what I was trying to figure out is, I didn't understand, like, is it that they're reviewing the coaching I'm doing, or I didn't really understand, like, with the mentor coach relationship, like, what is it, or is it peer coaching? Does that count, or are you just like, I didn't really understand what was happening in those 10 hours, like between the two people. I just a bit more clarity.
It's really in the specific agenda of how that you and your mentor coach want to carry through with that. It's the relationship that you all have. There is a sample information on the website about what the job responsibilities of the mentor coach are. But for example, oftentimes they will observe you coaching. That could be either in a live session with a peer-to-peer, and they're going to provide you feedback. Or they could listen to a recording and provide you feedback. But it's things that they are helping and supporting you to dig deeper into those core competencies and grow as a coach.
Okay, so it would be like something like a triad of coach, like where you're coaching each other. Like we did that when I see my instructor on this call too, from before. So I think I understand what you mean. Okay.
It could look like that. It's really, each mentor coach has a different way of doing it. And that's really why you want to kind of interview your mentor coach and make sure that there's a good fit there, that there's, that you all feel safe with one another, and that there's a good partnership or relationship there. So you just want to make sure and check on that. But they're there to support you and help your coaching skills grow and dig deeper into those core competencies.
Thank you. All right. Faylene, do podcasts count for CCEs?
Absolutely. They would count towards resource development hours.
Okay. And Teresa, I know you were up earlier, and I know I'm behind in the timing. We have so many questions in the chat. So I don't think this was asked again. So let me reiterate the question. Teresa's saying, I'm at ACC. I have over 500 hours. So I need to ensure I have my education hours and then apply, correct? So she has the coaching hours.
Right. So once you have that 125 hours for coach specific training, and you have the other pieces, so you're mentoring with at least a PCC credentialed coach, then you can go ahead and apply for that PCC.
Okay. Francine is asking for ACC renewal. How many hours do we need to have CCEs? So how many CCEs do we need?
It's 40 hours total. At least 24 have to be in core competency. Of that 24, those 10 hours of required mentor coaching are included in the core competency requirement, and then 3 hours of ethics are included in that 24.
Can I just have a follow-up question on that one?
Sure.
The volunteer assistance of the Coactive Institute core competency courses, do those count towards hours?
I'm sorry, repeat your question.
So I sometimes assist in these courses. I assist the facilitators.
Okay.
For the Coactive, and it's actually education for me because I always learn something different every time I do it, but it's volunteer work basically. Would that count towards education?
If you're an instructor, in order for it to count towards the education, you have to have both designed and delivered the program.
Okay.
Now, if you're wanting it for CCEs, where you're assisting and you're sitting in on those sessions, I don't know how someone could really sit in on a session and not learn something from it. So I would probably speak with the instructor and see if there's a way that, because you are in attendance, that you could receive a certificate of attendance, but just keep in mind that you can only do it for a one-time delivery.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so some of the questions I'm seeing have been answered, so I'm going to kind of skip through a couple. Doriana is asking, can I count coaching hours with those I also supervise at work?
Unfortunately, direct reports would not be eligible towards your coaching log.
Okay. Is there an exam book that we can study? Nerman is asking.
There is not a book. There are a couple of sample scenario questions and the way that they're viewed within the credential exam on the website, but there is not a book at this time.
So they could go to the website and see a few samples, is what you're saying, on the ICF website. Okay, excellent. Right. A question about how much mentor coaches charge. That's a tough one. That's up to the mentor coaches, right? I don't think there's a standard there.
That is completely up to the mentor coach. I know that especially for just starting out coaches, many of them do go to the reciprocoach because they not only offer a peer-to-peer program, they do have a mentor coach program. But please reach out to your local chapter. There's a lot of your members that offer mentor coaching and see what they have to offer. Check the mentor coach registry. There's just so many different ways that you could find mentor coaches. And, you know, I see several on this call that are spectacular, but you want to find a mentor coach that is best for you.
And I see there's a few people in the chat already talking about pulling that list together for this chapter. So let's do it. Absolutely. And Tony, I see you there as well. We'll come to your question. I'm currently an Agile coach and have been doing it for the past 6 months full-time. May I count these hours towards my ACC?
As long as they're coaching session and you have started your coach specific training, that was a class of at least 30 hours, accountable.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay. Nina, could you please expand on the definition of third-party coaching and what it includes?
Sure. Third-party coaching really is similar to internal coaching, but it's where you're hired by a company or organization, contracted to coach their clients or their workers. So it's not someone that you're directly employed with. So it's not internal, but it's third party, so that you're being brought in to coach for them.
I ask a clarifying question around that?
Sure.
So if I'm being hired by, let's say, a management consulting firm to coach employees of their clients.
Okay.
Is that third party coaching? Yes?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, sorry, I'm scrolling through to find the next question. There's a lot of good chat here. Okay, Lucy, I think I've come back to you. If I'm at an ACC level and want to apply for PCC, are there any specific criteria for the 65 hours of courses needed from an accredited ICF institution to add to the 60 hours that I already have?
Every person is different. Sometimes they will, maybe start out with an ACSDH program, and then they've come into contact with some really great CCEs. So they don't mind to apply via that portfolio path. We have some people that will start out with ACSDH and they'll bridge into an ACTP because they want the ease of the ACTP application process through ICF. So they'll do it that way. So it's really up to the individual on how they want to do that. But when you're doing that, you just need to make sure that at least 100 of those 125 hours are core competency.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And Perry, I think your question is very appropriate. If we have unusual circumstances, is there someone we can speak with about credentialing? I think we have that person right here with us today. I've been coaching for 25 years, written an award-winning book on coaching that has been published, and have developed a model of coaching based on research and coaches' results. Who would they speak to look at credentialing?
They can email this address, or they can also call this number, and it gives an option for the credentialing staff team. But the support email is really great. So what they've done is Credentials and Standards is now able to devote their time really towards those credential applications, those submissions, getting all of that processed, because they have created an entire new team that's customer service that supports those support emails so that they can get responded to in a much quicker pace for you.
Thanks, Perry. Judy, please go ahead.
Hello. I don't have a question. I just want to slightly embarrass Angie and say thank you, thank you, thank you. I've had dealings with Angie from years gone by when I was getting my PCC before the hullabaloo of the CKA and versus the new credentialing exam, and Angie just can't express heartfelt thanks for what you do and how you do it. I love the nervousness around the exam as we can all kind of feel our own ideology about what our clients go through when there's that intrepidation and we're all worried about things. And it's just so delightful that you're able to just to walk us through this, hand in hand, and just wanted to say thank you.
That absolutely just makes my heart want to burst. I've been with ICF going on 13 years, and I will say that when I stepped into the role, I was broken. And because of coaches like all of you, I have been fully rejuvenated and feel alive and have so much joy and love to give to all of you. So when I come across and I say, I want to ease those anxieties, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I want this to be a smooth process for all of you. And it means so much to be able to offer up this information. But Judy, just you saying that, I can go to bed with a clear heart and feeling wonderful. So thank you so much.
And
Thanks,
thank you,
Judy.
Angie.
All right, a few more questions, Angie. Serena is asking, does a mentor coach need to submit anything to ICF to verify the individual has received mentor coaching, or is it just their ICF credential or any other notes?
That is a really great question. So when you submit their information in your application, they are automatically emailed hey, did you coach this person or not? And they can respond either way. They're not required to, but they do have the option there. So you do not have to worry about submitting anything for them.
Okay.
But really great question.
Yeah. Deborah is asking, I just renewed. While I wait for my credential renewal to be approved, if my expiry date has passed, do I appear as visible and credentialed on the ICF website in the interim?
You have an automatic 60-day grace period from that expiration date. So if it's within that 60 days, it's absolutely going to still appear like on the Verify Coach and things like that, or the Credential Coach Finder. It will find it. You will still be listed there. If it's possibly after that, you may not show up for that little brief period of time, but as soon as it's processed, it will go through. Now, along with that, I do have a lot of people that are like, my ACC is getting ready to come up to expire, but I'm really ready to apply for that PCC. Do I need to do both, apply for the PCC and submit the renewal? The answer to that is no. If you're ready to submit that PCC and your ACC is still active, go ahead, submit that PCC. And what they do in the staff is once they review and see that you have your 125 hours of coach-specific training, they automatically renew the ACC so that you have an active credential while you're going through that PCC application process. They do this as well when you're going from PCC to MCC.
Okay. I think we're getting close to the bottom, folks. I know we're getting up to the top of the hour, so let's go through a couple more. Reg is asking, I recently completed the exam, and I would like to know where I went wrong, or at least know the competencies I may need to brush up on. Is there any plan for ICF to provide feedback on the exam, question areas, or themes where the individual exam taker should brush up or improve?
They actually will not provide that. When they first released the CKA, we kept asking, why can't we tell them? And it was just out of security for the application. They have no plan to ever provide which ones were missed and why they were missed.
Okay. Angie, I think we're at the end. Everybody, if I missed your question, I apologize. Please jump in now. You've got a few minutes, but I think I've gone through all the ones that were in the chat. Any last questions before we wrap up tonight? Lots of thank yous for you, Angie. You may want to glance into that chat if you haven't already.
I have not gotten to go through it, so I'm actually going to save the chat so I can look at them later.
We'll save it too.
If I
Anthony,
do
did you
see
want to
any
jump
questions
in?
that were not answered, I'll try to reach out to the person that asked in the chat. I'll try to reach out via email.
You're wonderful. Anthony, jump in.
Yeah, so just curious, if we have any more questions, how do we get them answered? Who do we reach out to?
You can reach out to me.
That sounded like a question. Wasn't
There
sure
you go.
if it was a statement.
No.
Oh,
You can
I
reach out
see.
to me.
In the chat. In the
It's
chat.
in the chat, Anthony. There you go.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
You can with my last name, because it's kind of lengthy a little bit. My husband takes that name very literal. He's very loud. I love him dearly. Goodness gracious. So, yeah, there's my email address. Feel free to use it. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to support all of you.
I appreciate you, Angie. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, Angie, a very big thank you for being with us tonight. And just always wonderful to see you. We might have to bring you back. This was just amazing. So we'll be in touch. Thanks again. Thank you everybody for being here tonight and asking such great questions. I can't believe how much I learned that I thought I knew. So I hope the rest of you feel that way as well. On that note, have a wonderful evening, everybody, and check out your newsletters, look at our website, lots of things coming your way this year. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kirk, can you save the chat, please? Because there's a
Yes.
gazillion. Awesome. Thank
Absolutely,
you.
Alicia.
Okay. Thank you, Angie. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Such
I
a
can't
great
wait to
speaker.
see you all in person.
I know. It's going to be fun. It's gonna be
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Kirk.
Good night.
Another great job. Thank you so much. You're an
Thank
awesome
you.
facilitator. You had a lot of balls going there. So
Hopefully I didn't drop too many.
I don't think
Oh,
so.
good job.
You
Good
did a great
job.
job. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great evening.
All right.